call the March meeting of the Audit Committee to order. First thing on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Anybody have anything to add or take away? All right. As I stated to several of you before we opened the meeting, this meeting will be over at 5 o'clock or before. So just for a setting the stage. Mr. Ball was unable to meet us today. He's out of town.
Nobody made a motion to approve the agenda.
Oh, apologies. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We have an official agenda. Thank you, Counselor. All right, so I'm going to give the invocation and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Dear God, we love you. We thank you for every day, even though it's a little bit cloudy and rainy today. I want you to know that we fall short many times of what's expected of us, etc. But we do love you and we try our hardest. Would like to thank you for this great county and everything that you've given us and our responsibilities here. And in supplication, I would just ask you to, guide our discussions and watch over us and keep everyone safe, especially our first responders and all government employees. It's not an easy time right now around the world, but we trust that everything is in your hands. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay, so as I was saying, Mr. Ball was not able to make it to the meeting today. He sends his regrets and regards. He stepped out of town.
I just spoke to him.
You did?
Yes.
Is he okay?
He is sitting on a beach, drinking a drink,
Okay.
a chilled drink with a mango in it, watching the sunset down there in 73 weather.
Shouldn't feel bad for Mr. Ball. Okay. Yeah, well, I know he was stuck down there because his significant other, now wife, has a medical procedure or something, couldn't get back, so. Thank you for that. We don't feel bad for him because he's drinking a drink and it's 70 degrees. All right, but what I was going to say is that Mr. Ball did provide me a list of key data and metrics to get from and discuss with Ms. Sly, the treasurer, and the treasurer's office. And I don't see her in the gallery today. Did we make a request for her to attend?
I talked to her about attending Thursday.
Okay. So in January, I feel like we asked that she come back in March, that we didn't have
we did, yeah.
February meeting. So just noted, looks like we probably won't have a visitor today because she's not here and we're going to be there in about 5 minutes. But so that the audit committee understands, at our last regular board of supervisors meeting in February, we did make a request for Ms. Sly to join us, which is this Thursday, at our work session. And again, in preparation, just reflecting on some of the conversations we've had with she and her officers there in the treasurer's office. On behalf of this audit committee, I will be ready because Mr. Ball has given us some copious notes as to, again, some of the conversations and concerns. Just in preparation for that, I think when we get to item 7, if you all will just let me know if there's anything that Supervisor Jefferson and I can ask her from the audit committee if there's anything to add. All right, so I need a motion to approve the minutes, assuming everyone read those.
So moved.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anyone opposed?
Everybody get a copy of the minutes.
Yeah. That's on email, Mr. Robertson.
Yeah, it's in the electronic version of the agenda, but
I'll forward it to you. Sorry. Just to speak to that for a moment regarding the minutes and Supervisor Jefferson's request. He's been newly appointed. We should have started off the meeting, I guess, by welcoming the chair of our Board of Supervisors as our newest audit committee member. When Supervisor DeStefano, stepped away there was kind of just this interim period, and Supervisor Jefferson stepped forward. So I appointed him in our last meeting in February, and welcome to the group, welcome to the team. Just in time for audit results and all kinds of good stuff.
I
So,
believe it.
yeah, all right. All right, so next, County Treasurer, like I said, I do have a list of things to speak to and talk about based on some questions that we had from Ms. Sly that she's answered in various ways throughout the last several months. But any burning questions or things on your mind that I can carry forward to Thursday? Just open it up to the group.
Chair Roundtree, just still a global question. I guess it's here, we've asked this question now, I guess, starting last year, over a year ago, what's sort of your vision to where you want to be at the end of a year and then at your term? And so what are the intermediate goals? POAM, what are we going to call it to get there? I think some of that's wrapped up in here, but maybe a little more structure around a specific date, specific deliverables to the citizens, so on and so
Like
forth.
SMART goals, right?
With specific measurable,
Specific
achievable,
action,
relevant,
right?
tangible, you got it.
Okay. Anyone else? Fabulous. I'll take this list forward to Thursday. Reports. I think we had some reports that Mr. Floyd passed out to you guys and gals. I know that the county cash balances report and the tax billing and collections report were both ones. Thank you for getting back on a regular schedule of that. These are ones I know when Mr. Grice was a supervisor, he used to get these every month, and we had a little interim period where we didn't get them, but they started back several months ago, coming on a regular basis. Again, we appreciate that. So I know Mr. Floyd put those in front of you all today. Again, these were given to the board in February. So you haven't had a lot of time to sit with these yet, but did want to make sure you have them. Any questions, or do you want to say anything about the cash balances or tax billings and collections?
Aside from the cash balances being a little misspelled, some errors there. These again, the cash balances, these are all the accounts that the treasurer oversees, so we're just reporting on that. We do the reconciliation of it in budget and finance, but that's her business, so to speak. We just do the reconciliation. As far as the collections, we're just providing reports based off of what we're seeing here today. Mr. Robinson, it would now be a good time to bring up what we've been discussing. Okay, perfect. So I forgot one of the gentlemen over here, I forget which one, brought it up several months ago, the first time we presented, with the real estate number being significantly lower relative to the budget amount, correct? I remember we had that conversation and we said we would look into it. What we did, we spent significant time behind the scenes trying to figure out what was going on. So what we've determined, what I determined with the team, and spoke with Mr. Robinson about, was, how we have the $3.6 million in the general fund on the expenditure side for the relief program. That has never been utilized from an expense standpoint. So what happens is the folks that are in that program, their revenue gets netted out of the revenue. So it decreases the amount of revenue that's being collected, but it doesn't change the budgeted amount. So for this year, it's $3.6 million in revenue that you'll never see and $3.6 million in expenses that will never come out. So if you want to do a true representation of what the collected amount is, basically that subtract 3.6 million from the original revenue amount, and then compare that to the year-to-date, and that's the proper collection rate. Now, with that being said, moving forward, I spoke with Mr. Robinson about it. We're doing away with that philosophy. We're going to, if it's being netted out by a department that we do not control, then that's the way that we'll budget for accordingly. We will not overstate an expenditure that will never be expended as well. So yes, your budget will go down, so to speak, general fund for 27, but it was never going to be raised in 26 or the previous years based on the logic that was used before. So thank you. I forgot, I think it might have been you, Mr. Grice, that brought that up, so we appreciate it. We were able to do some digging into that to determine exactly what was going on with that, and that's what we determined. So we had verified with the Commissioner of Revenue on the philosophy behind it as well, and that was what was determined. So we'll start budgeting for it accordingly, and that way those numbers will be more indicative of what we're actually receiving as opposed to, showing the 3.6 here that we're never gonna get because it's netted out.
And if I could chime in, Mr. Price, because this probably would be a little, I don't know that we had any significant conversations about this when you were on the board or not. One of the things that came up in this past budget cycle was the impact of the exemption, real estate tax exemption that we provide for disabled veterans. So that number has been going up exponentially to the point where in current year we budgeted about for all of the exemptions, we budgeted about 3.6 million. Current year, and I say current year, I checked with the commissioner as recently as last week, that amount is at 3.2 million and climbing for current year. So we're probably going to hit that 3.6 number pretty easily between now and June 30. So that was something that we did not previously budget, but in the current year, there is a $3.6 million expenditure budgeted for exemptions. But as Robert was noting, what we're finding is that in the day-to-day practice, they're actually netting out the revenues. It never hits the expenditure side. So if you look at it, the budget was actually inflated on the revenue side. So as he noted, we've never hit that in terms of collection. We'd always be $3.5 million off on our collections. So if you pull that out, our collection rate actually is probably much higher than it's reflecting.
I just think this gives a clear visibility.
Oh, yeah,
What you're gonna do now.
Yeah.
And it also is better measurable. Because if it keeps growing, it's gonna have to do something. I mean,
So just to be clear, that change will start July 1st, so for next year's budget.
Yeah, when we present our budget to you, we'll go into a little bit more depth about how we'll handle that moving forward. But essentially, we're not gonna include that such that our revenues are inflated. We'll certainly note it. We'll certainly be aware of it. But you'll probably see a 3.5% decrease if all things were equal, because we're gonna net that out on the front end.
I did have a couple of questions on the report. If I may.
Great. Yep.
The bond issues and the VIP term investments, etc. There's an interest line below each of those. And of course, there's restrictions on the use of those monies unless the board takes some kind of action. But you now have a separate line called county interest income. What is that line reporting? Because your interest on, for instance, the 2016 bond SNAP, you've got $146,000, $47,000 in it, and your interest in that account is greater. It's actually $278,463. But so it can't. That is reflected above. Where did the 217 that is being reported for January this year? Where is that interest coming from?
So that's a lot to unpack there, sir, so bear with me. The county interest income, essentially, that is basically the interest income that is being extrapolated across all of those bank accounts for that time period. As far as the bank account with the principal and interest, I think it'd be a good idea to actually have maybe potentially an explanation from possibly the treasurer of what those accounts are for, because to me, I'm reading that as the 2016, both of those 2016, one is the principal payment account, and then the other one is the interest payment account. And the same thing for the other one. So that is the amount of money that's in there to cover the interest payments and the principal payments respectively for each of those accounts, or each of those borrowings. But that's based off limited knowledge of, but I've seen it set up like that's a lot of bank accounts, but that's what I've seen done in the past. If we're labeling them principal and interest, and they're probably tied to those particular borrowings with the principal payments coming out of one and then the interest payments coming out of the other one, because we do track those separately from a budgeting standpoint. Every year we do the principal and interest across, general fund and all the other funds that the debt hits, as well as the schools.
Well, one of the things you might want to look at as well, since you're going into the budgeting process and you're going to be looking at capital and bonds and so on and so forth, is an explanation of those bonds and those monies. This is money sitting in a bank. And the question, the way I had understood it while I was on the board was interest, when you put money in a bank, you get interest for it, even under the SNAP account. And this bond issue for 2016 might have been $100 million or $45 million or whatever it was originally. And it's now down to $146,000 that is remaining of that money. And the interest, which it continues to grow, on the next line, it went from 277 to 278. There's not a high interest rate on it. But that is monies that is been paid by a lending institution or your investment institution as payment to the county and available for expenditure. Now, that's the way it was explained to me, and we have in the past taken some of that interest monies and used it for programs.
So, just again, taking the 2016 bond principal, that number, almost 147,000, hasn't changed in the last 4 years. So what you're saying is that amount is what's in that account to pay for the bond.
I would need to verify with staff on that one as well as the treasurer, but that's my understanding of it. And as far as the investment piece and all of that, I would need to look and work with Bobby and see if we're even. I mean, is that something that the treasurer controls? Because if the treasurer controls investment for the county, I know other localities I've been at, they were the ones that were responsible for that, not finance. So we had no say-so in it anyway, so it's kind of moot.
SNAP accounts, you wouldn't control over that.
What you're telling me right now is this is money left to be paid on that bond. That's what you're saying.
As it stands right now, at whatever time it is today, until I get a further dig into it, that's what I'm saying is.
That's not, for eight years, that was not what I understood.
Okay.
Okay? And those monies, right now there's and the next bond down, the principal SNAP of 2022, something happened between December and January because it rolled down from 2,178,000, which has been at for some time. It dropped down to 1,400,000. So it came down $600,000. I'd be an awful big payment.
We have large debt.
Probably made a payment, right?
We have pretty
We
large
made a
debt.
bond payment back in January for something.
But unless we were invested poorly, that same bond, the 2022 bond interest, went down. So unless we lost a bunch of money between December and January, why is the interest rate?
Normally what I've seen in the past is that you have to make transfers for your principal and interest payment. And so SNAP normally sets up one account for principal payments and one for interest. But then those payments are only paid like twice a year. So they require you to put the money in these accounts, but then the trustee transfers that to make the actual bond payments. And they take some from principal and some from interest. So I think it's not funds remaining on those.
It's just what's in the account.
Okay, then.
It's just what's in the account to be paid out.
Right. Here's what I'm going to suggest you do. You got 2 brand new board members. You don't have to satisfy me, but 2 new board members are sitting on this board. And we don't agree on what's being reported and what we're looking at. So if I don't know what we're looking at, I damn well know they don't know what they're looking at.
Well, it might be a good idea, like, just to add some notes down here, whatever, kind of noting what are each of these funds for. Like you said, kind of like a footnote maybe at the bottom that says, this one is used for our, normal everyday revenues and expenses are going through the operating account, or just add some footnotes so everybody knows what those are for.
Because if you look at the 2024 B bond, in October it was $5,700,000. And all of a sudden it went to $1,199,000.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that reflects the extrapolation of funds for a project.
Okay.
And that's the way I read the report for 8 years. It wasn't, we weren't looking at what we were proud to pay. We were looking at what we had left to spend.
Yeah, because like you pointed out, why are there still bond funds from 2016 not being?
Should the treasurer be able to identify what funds were, we had this amount in October, then we got this amount in November, so she should be able to tell us where that money went to.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
We should if it moved that much, you know what I would have done? I would have been dancing in my stable asking where the hell that money is.
We can get a history of the.
Yeah. Yeah. that
Okay, well, I think we can add this to the list of things that Ms. Law should be prepared to talk about Thursday. Hopefully, 4 days, 3 days is enough time. Prepared to prepare. I know Mr. Floyd, let me know if you find what you were looking for. One of the things that I keep asking about is why we still bank with Bank of America, but I know I've probably said that until I'm blue in the face and no one cares, but still a question I have too.
Well, actually, I think what I recall the conversation, Ms. Roundtree, was you asked the staff to take a look at another RFP around that discussion.
Yeah, and that's up to the treasurer, I think. The treasurer picks the bank.
Or is that the treasurer?
Yeah, so not him, not this staff, but yeah. Yeah, so I can ask her about that on Thursday as well. Mr. Robertson, will you make sure that Ms. Sly understands? Do you think you can explain to her what we want to see on this principal and interest bond
Yeah,
report?
and I suspect she's going to tell me that she doesn't do the report, so she may or may not understand what's on here either, but we'll have that conversation. Yes.
We're back to before Randy came.
It's kind of circular.
We've got 12 years in a circle.
All right, any questions about any further questions on the tax billings and collections report from January? Obviously, this number of total delinquents went up because we just had another payment date in December, right? So the difference from December to January, naturally, just looking at December's went from 2.394 million to 6.212 million, right? So not everyone got their stuff paid, obviously, and this is what we attempt to collect.
And this is a combination of personal property and real estate.
That's right. Yeah, it's coded out here, RE, PP1, PP2, which is first and second half of the year. Yep.
Okay, yep, good.
All right, again, I know that this was just provided to you all, so let me know by email if you, upon reflection, find anything else you'd like to ask before Thursday on these reports. Any other reports for the group? All right, as far as old business goes, we don't have anything under the old business section. New business. We have a procurement strategy presentation that Mr. Stanton was kind enough to prepare for us.
Thank you, Ms. Roundtree, board members, Mr. Roberts, good afternoon, good evening. So at the 12th January meeting, Ms. Roundtree asked the question, how we're doing on capital improvement plan procurement, and she made specific reference to mobile assets, fire emergency vehicles, fleets, that kind of stuff. Was there opportunity to get better pricing on these types of capital investments with with respect to terms, conditions, multi-year procurement, so on and so forth. So I've got some background in acquisition procurement, so I thought I'd just sort of do a little bit more research and bring this to the board for sort of a background brief, maybe end with some visionary discussion. I'm on slide 3. I always start my day thinking that when I have a problem, somebody else has probably faced it themselves, so how did they deal with it? So I looked up the Houston Fire Department just to kind of take a look at how maybe a larger organization deals with this. I don't need to read the numbers to you. You can see the numbers there. It's quite a large organization, very, very, very busy. They have a fleet of over 1,000 fire and emergency response vehicles. Interestingly, their average vehicle is 60% beyond the industry standard service life, which is about 10 years. Certain types of vehicles are 80% beyond their standard industry service life. They have some challenges. They have about a $500 million, I apologize, I didn't include the end there. It's a $500 million 10-year procurement requirement for capital improvement just for the fleet. And they're only budgeting about $386 million because obviously budget pressurization. So they're facing about $177 million shortfall, and the hole keeps getting deeper for them as well. So that's sort of the demand side conditions, what is happening there with the customer. If you look at the supply side in this market, because what we're trying to figure out here is there some kind of intersection between the supply and demand curve. There's been significant market consolidation in the emergency response apparatus business since 2020. 3 big acquisitions and mergers have occurred. So the big 3 right now that are standing are Pierce, Oshkosh, REB Group, and Rosenbauer USA, and they control well over 50% of the fire apparatus supplier market. And as we all know, when you get consolidation, that typically increases market power for the vendors. And these manufacturers also orient their market offerings toward customized needs by commodity sale of catalog stock apparatus. So you just can't go down and buy a Ford F-150 with a basic outfitting package. You have to sit down with the dealer and say, I want this kind of tires, this kind of bed lining, and this kind of rear view mirror, and so on and so forth. So it makes it a little more challenging for people like us that might just want to make a stock purchase. And interestingly, the lead time for emergency apparatus vehicles is over 2 years right now. 2-year lead time. I think Mr. Robertson had mentioned that previously in other discussions we've had here. So just some quick analysis in this market space. Even the nation's 4th largest emergency response fleet is having difficulties bending the fire apparatus vendor base to meet their needs and constraints. Obviously, the ability to influence procurement strategies is closely correlated with market power. So back to the chair's question, what can we affect? What can we influence? It's kind of difficult to see how Isle of Wight could fare any better in this market space than Houston does, given our much smaller demand signal and market power. And equally, it's equally difficult to see how any specific procurement methodology, whether it's an IDIQ contract requirements, multi-year, so on and so forth, can influence the vendor base. Again, it's back to market power, which we just don't have a lot of. So 2 recommendations, and I want to just kind of throw over a quick vision discussion. Specific to the county, Chair, I think what we'll probably do is ask the emergency apparatus management team, have they factored in the known vendor-based risks? That is, the 2-year delays that they're dealing with. If they have to replace a vehicle, let's say in 2028 or 2030, have they factored into the fact, have they factored in they're going to get it 2 years later than that? And then if they have, what is the risk to the county of that equipment having less availability, less operating availability due to that delay? Are we going to have less uptime for this equipment? Does that mean more, at the end of the day, does that mean less response for our citizens? So I think we need to ask that kind of question that's already been asked. Again, that's kind of what an audit committee does, just look at these from a different perspective.
Well, do you think it may be less response because of the fact that you got all these departments, everybody got plenty of equipment? If an engine breaks down, then you have to call for mutual aid for another department. So there's no real impact, so to speak.
Except that those other departments are probably facing the same problem, right?
Well, I doubt if everybody's vehicle can break down at the same time.
Okay.
But I doubt that very seriously.
But if your fleet availability is 90% today, And 2 years from now, with no changes, is it 85% or 84% or 86%? And then how does that affect the response rate?
Well, let's say this, today, Don signed the order for a new fire truck. Whatever trucks we have in service today, they're gonna run 2 years or 3 years until we get that new truck that he is buying. So I don't see a major impact, when it comes to a waiting period for a new engine to come in.
Okay, so.
Because of the surplus we got here in the county.
So I don't know if Connie had a surplus of vehicles, I didn't know that.
What I'm saying, surplus, I mean, everybody got plenty of vehicles that we could share, so to speak. Mutual aid,
Right, understand mutual aid,
yeah.
okay. I just sort of look at this purely from a quantitative perspective. You've got a fleet that's 90% available, okay, today, and you don't do anything to it, 2 years from now, it's not gonna have that same availability, just like your automobile. The question I ask is, if we don't do anything about that, what's the risk to the county?
But remember that you do maintenance to make sure you got to keep your vehicles up to standard so they can continue.
That's part of the 10% why they're up.
So,
Right.
so a couple of things. One is our process is a lot more fluid than that in that each year we have identified apparatus that will be replaced. So it's not really a function of any one agency in the county, because if you were looking at a singular agency, then you probably would find situations where, at some point, we're running worse than thin on our apparatus because everybody's kind of one breakdown away from, I won't say a disaster, but certainly finding themselves in a difficult situation. But as Mr. Jefferson stated, it's not totally reliant on any one department to cover the entire county. It's very much a situation where if one agency, let's say the one tanker that they had goes down, then they're relying on another agency to backfill that need, or somebody might even have a spare vehicle that they can allow them to use until they get their vehicle repaired or that replacement vehicle comes in. So we try to provide not necessarily redundancy at every station, but we certainly provide enough capacity countywide that we're probably not going to run into a situation where services are severely impacted in a negative way. On any given week, somebody's apparatus might be in the shop, somebody's apparatus, I sure want my mouth is not working today, might be in a state of disrepair, but that does not take the whole system out. It might create a temporary issue where we're kind of shuffling the equipment around, or the system knows Rushmere's tanker's out this week, so Smithfield's going to backfill that, and that's automatically communicated to dispatch. So it's a very fluid system in that respect. The other is, unfortunately, the lead time is probably closer to 3 years on some of the apparatus than it is 2 now in terms of replacement. So all of that is factored in each year when we go through the capital budgeting process.
So they do account for the anticipated delays.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you look at our system of replacement in real time, it's probably anticipating things 2 to 3 years out in terms of actual need, because any piece of apparatus that's identified for replacement, we know we still got to use that. We still got to keep that on the road for the next 2 to 3 years before the replacement vehicle comes in.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate, Mr. Shannon, you looking into this. I think just in recalling January 12th when we last met, the discussion is we were all kind of frustrated that we are kind of small, right? And that you can't commit dollars to future years that are not, funded and appropriated and budgeted for. outside of that. So I think Ms. Strant was searching for ways that maybe we could get together, maybe HRTPO or, Western Tidewater counties or something. Was there a way to achieve buying power more similar to what Houston experiences so that maybe we can do a better job?
And I just wanted to offer that we buy off the Houston contract. There is the Houston Galveston Area Council has a piggyback contract that we and 1,000 other localities purchase off of.
That's a really interesting statement. Tell me more about that, because I had no idea.
We
do it all the time.
As opposed to putting out our own RFP, we're allowed to use cooperative purchasing. So when we put out our RFPs for whatever product, we include the statutory language that would allow any other community to piggyback on our contract. They enter their own contract, but if we put out a contract for buying paper, and we're going to buy it for $1 a sheet, they get to buy it for $1 a sheet. They just have a separate contract that they're responsible for. For the fire trucks, if we were to try to do our own RFP, we'd end up with what, a 300 or 400-page spec sheet, just for the technical aspect of it, which we don't have the staff to do that.
We'd add another year and a half on top of that.
Right, and then to go through that. But what happens is this cooperative purchasing has all of the major dealers on it. And so they've all put out for a pumper truck, the Pierce, if they make pumpers, I don't know, but if Pierce makes a pumper truck, they have a base price and then all the specs that would go along with it. And so you still design your own truck through the dealer, but it is with a price sheet that you already know. Now, unfortunately, what has happened is you sign a price sheet on February or March 2nd, 2026, and somewhere 3 years from now they go, you signed that contract, but because steel prices went up, there were tariffs or whatever else, your truck is now $600,000 more than the contract that you signed. If you don't want to honor the contract, that's fine, we'll let you out, give you your money back, and we'll sell your truck to the next guy in line. And you can get back in line and wait 3 years. So,
another 3 years. Right?
And I suspect that would happen on sole source procurement. If we put our own RFP, there's no guarantee that they're not going to do the same thing. But as far as things other than fire trucks and fire apparatus, we buy our sheriff's cars many times through a cooperative purchasing from.
It's a state contract.
It's a state contract. I know we bought some from a Kentucky contract.
We did.
There was a Kentucky contract that we found that had the price for the vehicles and they had them. So that is what our procurement office, so we're trying to do is before, and when I say this was 5, 6, 7 years ago, the utilities department would work up their own RFP and put out their bids, and then once they found what they wanted, they'd come to purchasing and say, let's make this work. We flipped that and said, you tell purchasing what you want and let them do it, and because that way I think we are finding some savings that way, because it's what she does. That's what Dion does.
Isn't that interesting that you researched Houston and we already buy on that contract? It's very
Great minds
ironic.
think alike.
You were entirely,
We'll go with that.
you're entirely correct. But again, I started talking about this just upon reflecting on the last piece of apparatus we bought in Windsor, and how we had budgeted like $1 million for it, and then came back, by the time it stepped out, it was like 1.2 million. And then they come to a board meeting and they say, we're gonna need some more money to buy this piece of fire apparatus. And then they said, but if we go ahead and we'll pay it now, then we can get it for 900-something thousand. And I was like, you should have led with that, right? Because that means we actually did have enough money. Like, you buried the lead on that story. So interesting, Mr. Robertson. I don't know if you could speak to how that all worked out. I'm curious. But maybe that's part of the strategy, right? If they're going to offer you like a prepayment, almost cash up front discount, we're already obviously buying on the Houston contract, we're buying other things on state cooperative contracts, et cetera, that's great. We're just trying to think outside the box such that if you have the money available, go ahead and put it in if you're gonna get a discount.
So the Windsor model was, that's happened a few times. It doesn't happen every time. The vendors, just like we know this, all the vendors know this too. So they will literally come to us and say, hey, you don't have to start from scratch. Here's the Houston model. You can piggyback on this contract, and it speeds the process up. So they know that as well. But what happened with Windsor was that and we're finding this happening more often now. The vendor came in and said, hey, we've looked at your requested vehicle. It's going to cost X. But if you will prepay, if you'll put down a deposit now and basically guarantee us the business, there's a discount for doing that. Doesn't mean you get your vehicle a day sooner. It just means they have locked in your business. And so there's incentive for them to do that. And so they give us a discount on that. What it does from their perspective and what they sell us on, what they tell us is, you have now locked in or guaranteed your spot in the queue. And so once you give us that $1 million, we'll start working on your vehicle. Not a bad thing. That's just kind of the way the business works now.
And for them, they realize the cash earlier.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now our money is sitting in their account.
Right, for 3 years
So,
while they build it.
Yeah.
Or 2 or whatever. So does that, I mean, you just said sometimes that happens. I mean, is there a way to strategize how to offer cash up front before, other than them just offering from time to time? Is there a strategy there?
It's not necessarily a strategy that we would want to employ in every situation. Because you still want the leverage of saying, yes, we know we're going to buy a vehicle this year. We might buy your vehicle. We might buy Mr. Jefferson's vehicle. Make us a deal. We still want that leverage. You don't want to show your hand too soon in the process. You don't want to guarantee that you're going to go with Pierce, because you might want to go with E1, or you might want to go with somebody else. Because if you go with that, if you make that declaration too soon, they see you coming, and the price just went up.
You give away your competitive
So
advantage.
it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say it's a game, but it is a little bit of a, again, not showing your cards too soon, because you want to use that leverage to get the best price you can.
What's the name of that purchasing coalition again that you and Mr. Jones referred to?
For the fire trucks, it's the Houston, Galveston, it's
Corpus Christi, you said?
The Houston Galveston Area Council, AC.
But it's a provision that allows, and like I said, there are a lot of them out there, but it allows folks to piggyback onto an existing contract.
And for procurement purposes, we're allowed, you can piggyback for goods, non-professional services, and some IT. You cannot do professional services, you can't do construction.
On that particular.
But on any. Houston's is basically fire apparatus and supplies. It's not just trucks. They probably have 700 items they have under that contract. But for just in general, we have lots of contracts. I mean, that's the first thing when somebody comes and says, I want to procure grass cutting services. Well, we can put out an RFP or an IFP to get whatever services we need. But we can also, if they're in a rush or there's some urgency to it, the purchasing department searches to find out if there is a cooperative contract out there that we can just jump on and do it for until we can get ourselves in order to do a true RFP.
Sure.
So,
Chair, I'd like to just kind of maybe bring this to a close. There was a nexus here to our discussion last spring about ERP.
Yep.
if you recall. And we're sort of in the same situation where, I can't remember the name of the vendor, Tyler or somebody, I can't remember at this point. Who?
It's Tyler.
Tyler.
You're correct.
Thanks, Doug. And they pushed the can down the road, but we were sort of facing a pretty large ERP refresh bill. ERP is over 20 years old right now. And we were sort of dealing with the same things. How can we leverage this? How can we get some influence here? I don't know if there's similar purchasing coalitions that Mr. Robertson and Mr. Jones have referred to here for the ERP and IT environment. But maybe that's a question we could ask. And if we're not on those kind of agreements, is a way to get on those kind of purchasing coalitions and again, use market power to leverage that.
I appreciate that you sat on a subcommittee outside of these regular meetings about the ERP, RFP, and it makes me wonder if that's something, Mr. Robertson or Mr. Floyd, we were planning on beginning to budget for this year because it was so much. Did we say we were going to start setting aside money for the ERP?
No, not yet. If you recall, and Mr. Stanton probably remembers this, as a result of the conversations that we had with the vendors, they actually reduced our cost for, I think it was like next 2 or 3 years. So we're certainly wanting to take advantage of that. But we also told them that we would still, at the end of that time period, we'd still be looking to see what opportunities there are. So we do need to do that, look at whether or not we're going to stay with Tyler or move to some other ERP in the future, but it's a little bit premature to go down that path just yet.
Do I recall that RFP, it would go out in about, was it 4 years or something?
That was 3.
3?
2 or 3.
Yeah, and again, that's a pretty serious conversation to be had, because I think schools have said, hey, look, and we got other agencies as well that would say, no, absolutely do not change this horse that we're riding. We need to ride this one into the sunset because this is a significant impact on internal operations. So,
I think the town of Smithfield just changed theirs, right?
yeah, but it's a very serious conversation for us in terms of the impact. It's not just a matter of flipping the switch and changing services or changing systems. It is a significant impact on operations when we go down that path. It can literally take 1 year to 2 years to make that transition.
So the difficulties notwithstanding, the question I have is there a similar purchasing coalition for that domain, for ERP, that we could look into and see if we can get some kind of, again, market leverage?
The answer is probably yes. And there's a state, I don't know, it's VITA, I don't know what it is. VITA, which is a state IT, and so that, we would be required to look for a state contract first.
Okay.
And if you can't find a state, then we can go outside. But there's some caveats on IT. But the answer is yes, we would certainly look at that.
Okay. Great.
Great. So there are contracts, there's clauses in the contracts for many things like fire apparatus and goods and services, supplies, et cetera, that carry that favored nation clause, and we take advantage of it. It sounds like there's probably a program in procurement that searches that up and uses AI and finds that for us. So that's good. Anybody have any other questions for Mr. Stanton about the report? I appreciate your time and your willingness to dig in a little bit. I will say that we did make an amendment to the CIP, as I had indicated might be the case. We did amend our CIP slightly at the February regular meeting to include some out-year dollars for school replacement at Westside and some remodeling for Smithfield High School. Those were the two changes that were made in the amended. Obviously, the CIP will be considered, the 10-year CIP will be considered as part of the budget process, which is upon us. But we did go ahead at that meeting in February and make a change to add dollar amounts according to the current, you know.
As we look at the
Guesses.
students at schools today, what is the average number of kids in a class?
That really depends on what level they are. So obviously, like at different ages and functional levels, I mean, you could have a child in SPED that's a one-on-one, or maybe it's 7 kids, but maybe in a regular learning classroom it's 19.
So
Just
I'm
really
thinking about
depends.
the population, or student population. Is the student population actually increasing to the level where we really need to invest a whole lot of money into a capital project for a school like that?
Yeah, I understand your question. So, from my understanding, the school board and administration, it's actually an administrative policy that Dr. Kramer proliferated there. They are projecting need based on program capacity, not just raw numbers. So, although the average daily census, that's right, that's not right.
Membership.
Average daily membership, ADC, average daily census at a hospital, that's why I said that, but average daily membership, the ADM, sorry, Mr. Roberts.
Oh, no, you.
Yeah, so the ADM has gone up by only, I say only, but it makes a big difference, around 100 children from last year to when it was recently calculated. However, the school board and Dr. Kramer administration has taken a lot of time over the last, I'd say 9 to 12 months to look at program capacity that more clearly takes a look at level of child, level of program. So SPED, by age, by need, CTE, you know, and the different classrooms, because a classroom is not a classroom is not a classroom anymore. So it really depends. Your need for space and having to expand that space, et cetera, is not purely dependent on the raw number of children that are in your ADM. It is much more dependent on what types of services they need.
And that's absolutely true. However, you have to have a base to start with. And they have never provided, as far as I know, the Board of Supervisors with an inventory and an accurate count by school of the number of classrooms. For instance, there were 3 high school classrooms utilized by the IS department, the school IS department, in Smithfield High School. Now that has supposed to have been moved to their new facilities, which they paid $1 million to make space for. And yet they came back and they're now telling you that they need 30 more classrooms or something like that at the high school. They've also now said that they were using 3 classrooms out of the middle school for the high school. Well, why would they take them away from the middle school if they were needed? Or 2, when they were using 3 of the high school classrooms for IS, which now have become vacant. So, I mean, somebody has to go back and actually insist upon them sitting down and giving the board and themselves an accurate count of inventory in our facilities, number 1. And number 2, determining whether or not the facilities as they stand have the capability of being expanded. For instance, the Smithfield High School can be. I know that the one in Harding, it's the only one I know, because I was part of the design program. The board assigned me to that project. That school can add a complete additional wing, because the cafeteria and the gyms and all the other facilities were built to accommodate many more students than what we designed it for initially. And the property holds it. So somewhere along the line, we've got to start with a base premise before we start allowing these people to tell us that they need a new high school or a new West Side and a new this and a new that.
Gotcha. Okay, well, the West Side CIP change was a replacement. I don't think that anybody really disagrees with the fact that parts of that building are 100 years old or more, and
It's an age issue.
et cetera. That is an age issue. I do think that actually, I know that there's an explanation behind the kind of flip-flop between the middle school and the high school from a capacity standpoint. I say flip-flop, I didn't mean that. I know this is being recorded, but what I meant was the high school's using 20 classrooms in the middle school. I can't tell you right to this day if they've switched back those 3 IT classrooms or not. I feel like some of that may be wrapped up in reclaiming the boiler room for the band room, because band and chorus and all those classrooms are all up there up front together. So I'm not sure if that's delayed or where that is, but you know, we can bring that back to the board at some point, to the board of supervisors. Yeah, point well taken. School CIP, we did edit it, and there's still more questions. So
I spent 8 years on the board.
Yeah.
We talked about replacing the Hardy School, and we did.
I know.
Okay, $70 million. And we talked about replacing Westside. Okay. The last meeting I sat into as a private citizen, they were talking about needing a high school replacement. And it ended up being 30 classrooms, I think, in the final analysis. But that's $120 million.
It's more like 200 million to build a high school now.
Well, I can only go by the cost of
Yeah,
the
that's
last
a
one
lot.
in Richmond. So,
Yeah. All right, well, good stuff. Again, thank you, Mr. Stanton. I think a new business committee discussion, pretty sure that's just like, what else do you guys want to talk about the rest of the year? But before we go to that, and I pulled back the minutes from the last meeting, I would like Mr. Robinson or Mr. Floyd or Mr. Berry, whoever wants to speak to the status of the audit. Speaking of committee and new business and what we're gonna play with next, we'd love an update.
So regarding where we're at, we've submitted, from a county standpoint as well as a school standpoint, all the information to the auditors themselves for review. We're on a daily basis, if they're there, replying to inquiries from them. We were working on one last week that finally got resolved today. Was one of the last ones that I've seen. We went dormant for several weeks, so we provided, there was a big rush of requests, we provided the information, and then we're sitting and waiting, and then another rush. And then the last rush was only like 2 that I can recall, one that we were working on and then another one. So as far as I know, that we're just waiting on them to finish what they're doing. Someone had asked if there was anything that we've received from an issue standpoint. Nothing that I have seen, and I won't speak for her, but I think she said the same thing. Nothing on her end that she's seen that would cause a red flag from what we have identified and noticed thus far. So it's really just waiting on them to finalize their work.
Do you know when an accreditation body comes to the hospital, they always do like an end of day conference and then an end of survey, kind of like, here's what you should expect. So when they came, did they ever come on site and meet with you all, or is this all done over the phone and internet submissions?
So since I have been here, they haven't been on site with us. They did go with the schools and not the DSS. Ours was a timing issue. Whenever they were scheduled to come on site, we, quite frankly, as a county, were not prepared for that. I think we had briefed them, thus the delay, because we weren't ready from a county standpoint. And then by the time we were ready, it was literally everything could have been done virtually, which is what was done. So everything that they needed, we provided to them. And when I say everything, it was, you name it, it was provided.
So from the school perspective, when they left that day or whatever, that week when they came to see you, was there any kind of indication?
Just everything was fine as far as they saw, no issues. But they did, after that, did request, a series of information.
Okay.
And we provided.
Thank you. Anybody have any further questions about audit? About the audit for this year? And you're not wrong that it should have been done. I mean, typically the audit schedule ends in December, right? Yeah, so we're at March 2nd, and we are the audit committee, so waiting on the report. Yeah, so we can start going through it, I'd say. And because it's 5 o'clock, I want to take a look at the minutes. There are several things in the minutes that we approved that were things that I had asked for last time. I would urge you all, Mr. Robertson sent them out, we'll get them to you. There were several things that we had said we would follow up on and that I asked for specifically, Mr. Floyd, like a collections comparison, January, specifically 24, 25, 26. things like that. There were a few, comparative points, and then also things that we thought would be fun to talk about over the next 12 months with this committee. And I will do a better job of making sure that we have those things on our agenda for our next meeting. So I believe we had said that we would meet every other month, and I want to make sure, because a lot of times I forget, I want to make sure that we set the next date and that everybody's okay with it, right? I'm trying to get better about that. And if that were the case, then that would be May 4th. May 4th, 4 p.m. Everybody good? I'll tell Mr. Ball to fly on back for May 4th.
So May 4th.
May 4th, yes. So hopefully, March, April, we will be, does somebody have a game or something?
He said May the 4th be with you. So
We'll have to have a party afterwards.
Mr.
But,
Boss probably getting ready for Cinco de Mayo.
yeah, the next day. So by May 4th, let's hope we've got the audit report and we've got an action plan, and you'll be ready to present to this body as to steps moving forward. And
Hopefully you will have presented the results to the board.
I was gonna say, barring something crazy, if we don't have the audit by May 4th, then.
Yeah, there's all this stuff going on.
Yeah. Okay. All right, 501, meeting adjourned, thank you.